Hey guys, welcome back to another F1 video, and in today's video I'm going to be going over the second half of the season and going over the topics that need to be discussed. So hey, let's get straight into it. But before we get into it, I'd appreciate it so much if you liked and subscribed, if you followed my F1 Fantasy League and followed my Twitter. So hey, let's get into it. So for me, I believe there's about 5 main topics I want to talk about in today's video heading into the second part of the season. And comment down below if you think I've missed anything out. But of course, the first one we need to speak about is anyone going to be able to beat Red Bull and get a win this season? Now for me, this is a certain yes, purely because of 2 things. One, they'll get a DNF, or they'll get a crash that hinders or DNFs them out of the race. This is almost a certainty in F1. It will happen at least one race and then someone will go on to win it. Hopefully not Perez though, or maybe Verstappen and Perez both get taken out. And the other thing is they will slow down on developing their car for next season's car if they carry on being so dominant, because of course their car doesn't need to get that much better. So in the last few races, people might actually be able to catch up a bit and secure a win. So for me, second part of the season is probably going to be a bit more interesting win-wise, but don't expect any heroics going into the next 2 or 3 races. I'm thinking more in the next 5 to 10 races, very much to the end, like Abu Dhabi, Brazil, those sorts of races. Then on to the second point, which is Ferrari versus Mercedes. Now, Aston Martin I'll talk about later, but I feel like they're in a different race at the minute. But the real question is, who is going to get second in the Constructors, Ferraris or Mercedes? Now, from the standings at the moment, Mercedes are about 50 points ahead of Ferrari. But, of course, we know Ferrari looked quite good in Spa. So going into the rest of the season, could they be faster than the Mercedes? I think so, considering Sainz has been very consistent and Leclerc has had a good few races. I believe if Russell keeps on doing not as good as Hamilton, there's a possibility that Ferrari could get it. But for me, Mercedes are the favourites to get second in the Constructors. But let's hope for some good battling between those 2 teams. Then moving on to the battle for third in the Constructors, and it's Aston Martin versus McLaren. Now I know a lot of you might be thinking I'm optimistic for thinking it's Aston Martin versus McLaren. But there's a good reason for this. If McLaren don't slow down and Aston Martin carry on where they are, I believe Aston Martin and McLaren will be very close on points going into the final few races. Now, what does everyone think? Will Aston Martin resurge, or will McLaren drop down again? I don't know. Of course, I hope McLaren do well, but I could easily see Aston Martin getting their car back up to scratch, considering they've done it before. But again, like with McLaren, we've seen them get their car better again, so we know they can. So maybe Aston Martin and McLaren will be second and third best car. But for me, I think it's too much to ask to get into 4th in the Constructors. I think if they get 5th in the Constructors with around 200 to 250 points, I would say that was a very good year for them overall, considering the start. Same with Aston Martin. I doubt they'll be able to keep up with the Ferraris and the Mercedes, even though at the minute they're ahead of the Ferraris. But I do believe they'll be able to hold on to 4th, because McLaren is just too far behind. But hey, what do you guys think down below? Then heading on to my 4th point, which is, can Williams keep 7th in the Constructors? So we know Williams is joint 7th with Haas on 11 points. Albon securing all the points for Williams. And if Albon can carry on with his heroics, I think they can. Considering where Haas is going and where Williams is going, I think Williams look like the better car for the minute. Even if Haas has great qualifying, they just have 0 race pace. So I doubt Haas will overtake Williams. Now Alfa Romeo, on the other hand, could overtake Williams and Haas, but I think it's so close between the Alpha Tauris, the Alfa Romeos, Haas and the Williams. There's going to be a massive struggle for that 7th place, but if Albon can carry on, which I think he can, then I believe Williams can get that. So for me, I think Williams can keep in 7th, but I wouldn't be surprised if Haas dropped down and Alfa Romeo took their spot. I think it's too much to ask for Alpha Tauri to do that, but potentially they can get a few points on the board more, but I don't think it's going to end very well for AlphaTauri this half of the season. So hey, comment down below, who do you think is going to win the battle of the lower end teams? Now onto my final point, which is, will Logan Sargent or Daniel Ricciardo score any points? Now Nick De Vries of course is out of the championship now, so he ended up with 0 points, but the only other 2 drivers on 0 points are Logie Bear and Daniel Ricciardo. Now for me, I'm adamant Ricciardo is going to score at least a few points. It's looking like he will. I don't know when, maybe in the next few races, but he will definitely at least get 1 point, so he won't end on 0 points. Sargent is a bit of a different story. His rookie season, he's not doing that great. But hey, maybe he comes alive in Zandvoort and gets a few points. I don't know. But in F1, there's always a crazy race that happens. Maybe Sargent can just keep out of trouble and get a few points in a crazy race, such as that Australian race. Of course, he couldn't do it there because he did crash himself. But it'll be good to see what he can do. So hey, comment down below about all the topics I've spoken about in today's video, and I'll be sure to comment back to all of you. And what do you guys think about going into the second half of the season? What have I missed out that could be interesting? So hey, until next time, have a good week. Bye.